So it's setting it up.
Yeah, it says on my screen live on Facebook.
Okay, cool. So I think we should now be live on Facebook. So hi everybody, thank you for joining us this evening. Yep, hopefully we are live now. I hope you're all well and excited to be here for our first ever EWiF Inspires Live. I'm Helen Mansfield. I am the MD of Encouraging Women into Franchising, or EWiF for short. And I really wanted to start these EWiF Inspires Live conversations because our mission here at EWiF is to encourage more women to join the franchise industry. Because franchising really is such a great way to either grow your existing business or start your own business with the support of an established brand. But often we find that franchising is overlooked as an option. So with these conversations, we wanted to spread the word about how fantastic franchising can be for women looking to make a change in their life. Each session, we will be chatting with a different guest and we'll hear their inspirational stories of how they took the leap into the franchise industry. Right from the very start, when they first had the idea to join the franchise industry, all the way through the growth of their business, and then how in more recent times they've adapted their businesses to cope with the challenges that have been brought on by coronavirus. I really, really hope these conversations will empower you to take the first steps to finding out more about franchising and how it can really help you take control of your own career goals. So as tonight is our first session, we have a really special guest with us. This is Anne-Marie Martin. She's the founder and franchisor of Diddidance, who run funky preschool dance classes for girls and boys. Anne-Marie is the chair of our EWiF meetings as well in London, and she is a very big supporter of EWiF and our mission. Last year, she even won our Inspirational Woman of the Year award. So who better to start us off with? So just a quick note before we actually get into the conversation, as we're talking, if you do have any questions for Anne-Marie that crop up, please feel free to post them in the comments below this video. And then hopefully towards the end of our chat, I'll have some time to pick up some of those to ask her. So I invite you to grab a cuppa and settle in as we chat with Anne-Marie Martin. So hi Anne-Marie.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's exciting.
How are you doing tonight?
Yes, good, thank you. I'm settled in, not with a cuppa, but with...
I've got mine. Oh, nice.
Just a little one, you know. Relax into it. So yeah, all good, thank you. Busy day, but always good.
Good. Yeah, you always have a busy day. So I wonder if to start us off with them, if you could just tell us a little bit more about the Diddidance franchise, what it is, what do you guys do?
Cool. So as you said, we are preschool dance classes, and I started the business a long time ago, and I think we'll go into that later, but we have franchisees across the UK from Glasgow down to Plymouth, and usually pre-COVID we run physical dance classes and we explore 16 different dance styles. So effectively it's a 2-year program if people wanted to continue, and we do just very loosely explore that dance style. So children are getting a really healthy and happy start in life. It's all about setting those healthy and happy habits, and we just want dance, as a ex-dancer, I just want dance to be the first experience of that, to be a really fun, happy, exciting one, so that then they might be more likely to dance when they're older. So yeah, we run 45-minute classes, parties, early years settings, range of merchandise, and now an online session offering.
I'm sure we'll get onto that as well later. Brilliant. So obviously you mentioned that you were a dancer and you're clearly really passionate about dance. So tell us then about your journey, your history, and into starting Diddidance, from being a dancer to the owner.
Cool. Well, I trained, or I've been dancing since the age of 3. It was one of those, my mum took me along to a class back home in Derby, and she said, right, try a few different styles and let me know which one you want to do. And I was like, all of them. And you know, progressed over the years. I did a degree in contemporary dance up in Leeds, and when I graduated, I then was very fortunate enough to travel around the world dancing. I was in a residency at the Royal Opera House for over a year in a contemporary dance company. Very surreal, getting in the lift with Darcy Bussell and just trying to play it cool, doing that. So, and you know, various pop videos, and for those that are old enough to remember, Top of the Pops, and various bits and bobs like that. So I was really lucky to get such jobs such as those, and all the time through that I'd been teaching. So I've been teaching all ages, well, sort of from 5 upwards, even to running adult classes. I taught at a full-time performing arts college, and I kept that going as much as I could. And I then started teaching for a few theatre school setups. And when I decided performing was over in my late 20s, it was then that I thought, well, actually, no, mid-20s, it was then that I thought, right, okay, what could I do a little bit more? I really loved the teaching, but that was mainly evenings and weekends because of school-age children. And so then I started working for a play company in North London, and it was there that a lot of the mums and nannies kept asking me about, you know, a really funky dance class. You're a dancer, you start something. And I was literally just like, under 5s, really? What are we going to do there? I didn't have enough knowledge with the age group to really understand what they could retain or what they would get out of it from that age, because I knew I didn't want to go in with anything too disciplined. You can't be technical, you can't be disciplined with this age group, as in, you know, like a teacher discipline style. It got to be something really free flowing and something they could take at their own pace. So through the experience I had working for this play company, I was seeing that repetition was the key, and the things they were doing every single week were really going in. And literally they booked a venue, told me to turn up, and just, you know, went, there you go, there's our kids. So that was back in 2003, and I just loved it. And over the years, I developed the lesson plans. I then decided to get music written. So we've got 3 albums of original music now. And I then decided that I needed to test it. So I thought, right, they all know me pretty much. And then other customers would be friends of friends. And it was all, you know, back in the day, there was no social media. It was all word of mouth. How old I am. And it was really, everybody sort of knew me. So I then decided to take on a few teachers and see if the classes were still popular without me, but them keeping the same format. And that seemed to work. And then because I was living in Southeast London, I then decided to test a few different areas and see if it wasn't just that area of North London that was very popular at the time. Yeah. Tested a few areas that worked as well, and then I thought, oh, maybe I'll expand it a bit more. But yeah, that's how diddidance was born, really.
Oh, amazing, thank you. That's given us a good bit of context to start from. So from that then, so you obviously had you heard about franchising before that? Did you understand that kind of what you were doing there, setting up these different classes, is exactly sort of the format of what franchising does, and systemizing everything so somebody can follow the precise model? So yeah, I mean, was franchising on your radar at that time, or how did that
I'd heard of the concept because the 2 theatre schools that I worked for, Stagecoach, Theatre Train, I knew they were franchises. Yeah. And the play centre that I worked at, the play company, Gymboree UK, was I knew that was a franchise. So before I even thought of setting my own thing up, I think through being self-employed, I'd not known anything different. I'd always worked for myself and been in charge of myself. I think I'd make a terrible employee. I just don't think I'd to anyone. So I knew I always had that, and I knew I always wanted some sort of my own business. So I started looking. I knew they were franchises, but they were already existing in areas. But I started looking into that. And then it wasn't until, you know, my toddler dance classes, which actually were called Funky Feet back then, it wasn't until they started getting more popular and I'd tested a few areas that I started thinking, oh, actually, could I franchise this? And I sort of know what it's about, but I don't know enough. And, you know, again, back in the day, there wasn't all this wealth of YouTube and social media. And so, which isn't the way to franchise, by the way, it was, I needed a consultant and I needed someone who understood my industry. And that's, I went to Clive Sawyer and of Business Options, and he just held my hand and showed me the way and made sure I did it ethically, morally, got the legals in place, and really just made sure I did it all properly. So, you know, without him, it could have been in a very different place.
Yeah, so just for people that are watching that don't know, Clive Sawyer, he's actually the founder of EWiF, and is still on the board and the chairman of EWiF. So yeah, absolutely great guy. Brilliant. Okay, so I mean, was franchising then? Did you consider just continuing as you were and just growing it sort of yourself with teachers under you, or was franchising always sort of something that was in the back of your mind that you kind of thought that is the kind of way I would like to eventually grow?
Well, I think because I tested as far as I felt I could physically do myself with teachers, you know, I was running at that point from sort of N1 all the way through East London, all the way round to sort of SE22. I just thought, right, this is pretty much my capacity with me and a few teachers. So if I want to grow this, then I think for me, I felt that franchising was the right way to go. I didn't want to try and run it centrally, because outside of London, I knew I couldn't physically get to these places. And employees are great, but they're not passionate about your business the same way that you are. They are not invested in your business the same way as you are. So for me to get a business out there in an area I didn't know, then I knew I needed somebody who had a vested interest in the brand and really no one will have as much passion as a franchisor, but somebody that was financially and passionately invested into that business that could really market it and do it properly. And Clive advised me to start with a pilot scheme. And, you know, I had a few friends who were on the same level of, you know, retiring from performing, looking for something to do. So we wrote up a pilot franchise agreement, and I gave it to 3 of them, which was quite a nice spread. It was sort of North Surrey, Essex and Chester. So I felt it gave me a really broad geographic range to test it out and see how it worked.
Yeah. I think you've hit upon some really interesting points there. I think you're totally right. I think the great thing about franchising is obviously the you know, you want people that have the knowledge as well of their own local area. Like you say, you know, you're very like London centric based there, and if you're going to franchise in Scotland, like you have no idea what you know the area is up there, and the kind of the prospects of running the classes there and things like that. So that's what a franchisee in that area, that local knowledge, is really important. And as you say, their investment into it and having the passion that you've got. You know, I'm sure employees are just as passionate as you know, business owner, but I think they really do have to have that passion and drive themselves, because it is their own business at the end of the day.
Yes.
You know, so
it's just a different level. Yeah, employees are brilliant, but it's just that different level.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so obviously you said you started with Clive. How did you actually, what was the first step you took? So how did you find Clive, and what was the process from deciding that you wanted to start the franchise to then going through the whole process of actually franchising it, getting your pilot franchisees?
That's a good question. How did I find Clive? So I must have been Googling or doing something, and I don't know whether there was a guy called Mark who worked for Clive, and I think he'd previously worked at one of the stage schools franchisors, and so he understood the kids activity industry. I think I'd spoke to a few different companies and consultants, and it seemed a little bit formulaic. It was just, oh yes, this is what you do and this is what you do, and it didn't seem to really fit the industry I was in.
Yeah.
But they understood it because of their background in it, because of Mark's background and experience, and I just felt that he was the right person to speak to, and then I moved on to Clive, and he was such a big help. So yeah, I think it was just and I spoke to someone else about this the other day. There are such a range of fabulous consultants out there. If you are going to look to expand your business through franchising, I think it's just about finding the person that fits you and you fit them. It's not about approaching somebody and they go, yeah, great, it's this much money, and yeah, of course I can make it work, I'm sure I can. It's about finding someone who'll go, oh, well, let's see, let's test it, and be honest and open with you, and somebody who understands the industry that you're in, whether that's fast food, plumbing, dancing, whatever that is. It's about somebody who's got lots of experience in your actual industry specific, so they can understand how franchising works in that industry for you, because, you know, as we know, franchising covers so many different types of work that it's about finding someone that you can have a good relationship with, because that person you need to be completely open and honest with, and, you know, they need to be able to kick you up the bum when you need to finish off writing that ops manual, or finish getting your disclosure pack and your prospectus done. So it's a very close relationship when you first start.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. I mean, people, it's really important. Obviously, it's going to be your business, and you know, and also you want to be able to find people that are just as passionate about your business as you are. So it's very important. Completely agree. Okay, so I think then if you could then start to talk us about how you then started to start really the franchise, to grow the brands. Obviously, you've got your ops manual. You've maybe had, how many pilots did you have when you first started? Do you remember?
So we started off with 3, and that was, so I tested the business, and I think when it all started coming off, and it was about 2006, and that was the point where when we looked into franchising, and I'd already bought the trademark for Funky Feet, because why wouldn't I? And then we went to franchise, and it was, oh, okay, so I presume you've done a really good Google search about if anybody else uses the name already. I was like, no, why? Well, but I own the trademark. Yeah, but if they've already been operating before you bought that trademark, you can't really stop them, and we need to make sure you've got a really unique name. Yeah. If people are going to buy into this. So I was like, oh my God, you're joking. So of course did the Google search, hundreds of dance classes out there using this name. I was devastated. I remember sitting on this chair just being like, what am I going to do? And thinking that was the end of my journey, just literally over a name, just thinking, I've just wasted all this money, it's ridiculous. And then they were like, just got to think of a new name, that's all you've got to do. Yeah. And I'd always liked alliteration, and I was just like, well, okay, it's all right, to be fair, yeah, maybe Funky Feet doesn't quite do what it says on the tin. So if we're thinking about dance, you know, they're quite little, they're quite diddy. I suppose like something like Diddy Dance. It was literally that quick.
Oh my God.
And it was just like, boom, that's the name. Literally, I got on that at that precise moment and bought the trademark, did a search, nothing else out there, and bought the trademark there and then. It was that quick. So that was 2006. And then 2007, I only selfishly went and got pregnant.
Oh, Marie.
I know. So I was just in this crazy time of like, I'm just trying to launch a franchise here. But hey, this is okay because baby's just eat and sleep. So, you know, it's not really going to affect me too much because I will just work when baby naps and, you know, during feeds, and it'll all be fine and everything will go okay. Forgetting that I was also still running my own classes. Yeah. And I think at this point, I was just teaching a handful of Southeast London classes myself, because that's what my passion is. I still teach ridiculous amounts of classes every single week. I'm on the front line, the same as every franchisee. And he was born the beginning of 2008. And I think we'd got to a point then, I'd probably got a couple of other teachers that had then decided to take on a pilot franchise. And yeah, you know, as any new mum will tell you, it's such a big shock to the system. And so I was really thankful that I'd actually only got to the pilot stage then, because the few that I had were really understanding. We hadn't got those solid things in place that I had to sort of be held to. We were working very much jointly on developing how it grew, what I needed to be as a franchisor, how it worked in different geographical areas. And they were, you know, they were friends as well, so it was really supportive. And you know, I was thankful for that. Because things spiraled for a while. I struggled to breastfeed, and that played on my mind. I was getting ill from it. And I think just the stress and anxiety of a newborn and a growing business, and the pressure I'd put on myself, and then, you know, teachers either letting you down or being ill and running around. I was running around dropping kits in just a matter of weeks, and it just all got too much. And I think if I look back now, that was probably a bit of postnatal depression there, actually, triggered from lots of external things. But I just don't think I was kind to myself, and I think I put too much on me. You can do this, don't quit, keep going, all of those things that, you know, we're told as business owners to do. And it was just too much. And you know, getting through that was quite a big period for me. And so then I think it got to about 2010, just leading up to that, and a friend of a friend came from a business and sales background, and she was looking for a new job, a new opportunity. And so we came to an agreement where she would help me. So we went through everything I'd already got in place, and she said, right, now's the time to start selling it. We did sell it back then. It's not the word I would use nowadays. We award it nowadays. And we went, I think we had 7 pilots then. And then in that first year, we went from 7 to 14 franchisees very quickly. But I wonder whether that was because we were selling it. It was, oh my God, you want to buy it? Oh, awesome. Okay, yeah, brilliant. Oh, I'm so flattered. And I'm not saying we made any completely wrong decisions. One of the very first paying franchisee we took on was still only left last year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it wasn't that we made bad decisions. It just, that quick growth when you're so early in franchising was just a little bit too quick. And so I think from that point, I made a very conscious decision of being more organic and making sure I had, there were things that franchisees were asking, or processes we didn't have in place, that I just, my anxiety spikes when I feel out of control, when I feel I don't have all the answers. If somebody asks me something, I don't have the answer, I can feel it. And it's, you know, it's been very relevant recently, but I think I felt like I didn't want to do that again. So I made that conscious decision that, right, okay, let's take this a step at a time. We're not selling anymore. We want to make sure we're getting the right people on board. This is a long commitment, not just for them, but for us as well. This is our brand to protect here. Let's make sure that we're recruiting responsibly as well. I don't think it was in my head then, or could this, I think they're great. They're a lovely person and they can obviously deliver great classes and do all of this, but responsibly, can they make a business out of this? Will this serve them? Or am I being unethical by just going, yeah, be all right? What, you know, yeah. And that's something I'm always very conscious of now, of making sure that I truly believe any franchisee could make it a success. I believe they can make it a success, so that I hand on heart know that I've taken on the right person, and that I've not just let someone have it and gone, they might be all right, because you know there's a fee involved, and yes, you're giving a lot of your time and knowledge and IP over, but yeah, I always want to make sure that I pick the right people nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're definitely not alone when when you were talking about feeling like you have to have all the answers. I think that happens to a lot of franchisors. It's quite a difficult transition, I think, because you kind of go from dancer, in your case dancer, to then business owner. But then when you become a franchisor, it's a whole nother level, because then obviously you have not just employees to lead, but a whole team of people who run their own businesses and depend on you as well as their leader, and securing the future of the whole brand. So
you feel so responsible. You've got your family at home, and then you've got your franchisees as like another family, because you feel protective of them and you want to make sure you're doing right for them. It was a big jump.
What do you think, what helped you through that time then? What helped you kind of gather yourself, get your head together, and continue on? Or did you ever think about stopping, or just giving it in?
I think the nature of the business helps me, and still helps me to this day. So as I said, I still teach. That's where my strength lies, and as a franchisor, that has to be where you do what you are strongest at, and then you bring in people who have the skills that you don't, or you don't have time to have, or you just can't get your head round, and you play to your strengths. So, but that has been, and it's probably not until the past year that I've really appreciated that I move, I dance, I move into music however many times a week. And I know lots of people talk about how being physically active can help stress, can help anxiety, but I'm such a survivor of that. And I think literally that is what saw me through, because when I wasn't teaching, I've got 2 children. So during both sort of, they're not official, are they, but maternity periods, because you never really get maternity. But during that, while I wasn't teaching, I would definitely know when it was coming on and feel a bit overwhelmed, because every time I would get back to teaching and dancing to music, I could feel myself feeling better at the end of the day. It gives you that different mindset and control over your mind, that you let it all out, and then you feel, right, I can tackle this again now. And it's like anybody, people that run or go to the gym or do whatever it is, it just so happened that my business was that physical activity that kept me going, really.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So you mentioned really early on, obviously, when you selfishly got pregnant, I know, that kind of obviously forced you basically to sort of slightly take a step back and collaborate more, you could say, with the pilot franchisees and new teachers. Do you think that actually had, whilst obviously very stressful, do you think that actually had a positive impact right at the start of diddidance as you were growing, because they could actually feed back to you on what it is they needed as a franchisee in starting up the business? Do you think that had any impact?
Yeah, I'd never really thought about it like that, but I think that's a really good point. I think in those early days, and probably a lot of it is a blur, but it's like if there's postnatal depression, or when you go through bad patches with your anxiety, you look back on it and there's not a lot that feels that clear.
Yeah, sure.
But I think it must have been, and maybe I didn't learn from that enough, because there's quite a balance. I believe wholeheartedly it's a relationship with your franchisees, and that has to be two-way. And you have to be open and work creatively together. But there have been large periods where I haven't been like that, and not because I've wanted to be defensive or I've wanted to be know it all, but because I felt that's what I should be. Oh, well, yeah, but if I don't have all the answers, if I don't say how it is, then why the hell did they buy a franchise off me? You know, they bought into me because they want me to be passionate about what I'm doing, and they want me to have all the answers, and they want me to know what I'm talking about. And so I look back, and you know, there's been work buzz surveys. There's been over the past in the years, there's been feedback like that, and I've always thought, what? And it isn't until you do look back on those things and you go, oh, yeah, because that's why I was thinking that. That's why I was feeling that. And it's something that I work on a lot to try and not think, no, cut that down because I should have the answer. And, you know, funnily enough, now in this situation we're in, because of course we all knew it was coming, we all planned for it. I've embraced it even more. I have so many times sort of gone on and done a live with the franchisees or spoke in our group and done it and just gone, actually, guys, what do you think? Yeah. Well, actually, I need you to help me right now as well. And I need to know this. And I say it a lot now. I don't have all the answers. And I was speaking to Freddie St. George earlier, and he was saying there's things I know, things I don't know, and things I don't know I don't know. Yeah. And God, I remembered that. I didn't think I would. And it's so true. And by admitting that, so much more relatable, and the conversation and the relationship builds so much better. But I'd spent so many years being that, I have to know all the answers, I have to be right, I have to do it all the way, otherwise they're going to lose trust in me and they're not going to look up to me that they've bought into the right franchise. But yeah, so I think, going back to your question, I think in the early days, I think that probably did happen, but I probably didn't remember that as much. And then as soon as I got back into sort of work mode more, I really did, again, just feel that pressure of like, right, okay, we're growing now. Okay, I've got to have all the answers and I've got to do everything.
Yeah. Well, you are really human, you know, I think, and like you say, I think having the honest approach of, you know, guys, I don't have the answer, but I'd really like you to help me work towards getting it. So you mentioned as well that, after that sort of period of time, you then went into almost like super drive and really sort of like sold the franchises and grew, like basically doubled within a year. So what then you changed and sort of started to, obviously that was probably a bit too hectic, and so then you changed and sort of, like you say, started to grow more organically. So what was the process there then? So I think it's really important, franchisors do often struggle with potentially the first few franchisees that they take on board, because they're so excited to have somebody that wants to join the franchise that potentially they may take on somebody that's not quite the right fit for their brand, could be perfect for another brand but isn't actually quite the right fit for them and their values. And that's a really hard balance to strike, because you do want to take people on, but obviously you want to take the right people. So what was your thinking there? What were the values that you were looking for, and how did you decide if somebody was the right fit for diddidance or not?
I think it was just almost sticking to our guns a bit more. So when you first start out, it was like, oh yeah, don't worry, yeah, we'll come to you. Oh yeah, don't worry, no, you can skip that bit. Oh okay, don't worry, oh yeah, we'll change that little bit for you, and don't worry, I can tweak the agreement to suit you. And you know, there was things where we bent over backwards looking back to try and get the sale, as it were. And then I think you sort of realise that that isn't how you can go forward. And so it was about, you know, nowadays, if I look back to how we are now, there are not hoops that people have to jump through, but they're just little hurdles that, you know, anybody who wants a business has to understand your business and know and have a passion about it. So they've got to put a little bit of time and effort into it. So I think it was just tweaking the process that, right, we will make contact, we will send you the details, you will come back to us, we would sort out an open day. And our open days, we did go from traveling all over the country to just doing some in London and some in Chester. Chester was my very first franchisee. She was my very first pilot franchisee. She still runs to this day. love her. And so I would do some north and some south ones. Found out people didn't think that Chester was that easy to travel to, you know, trains and things. And so most people ended up coming to London. So I was like, oh, okay, right. Well, actually, yeah, that's good, because then they see me teaching in action. They see a real class, you know, we don't send them a nice little filtered, edited video of, oh, look how wonderful this is. They come and see the reality, or at least they did before we went online. And they see the reality of the kids running around. And, you know, anybody who works with toddlers should understand the nature of toddlers. They've got their own agendas. They wake up one morning, they did everything last week, but they've woke up today and they're just not in the mood. Nah. So, you know, there would be that risk of like, come on, it's great. And then you'd have 4 of them just stood in a corner like that, or one of them screaming and crying, and you're just like, okay. But it showed the realness of it. And, you know, at that point, people might look at that. I've had, you know, ex-dance teachers and all this look at it and just go, the fear of their face of just like, I'm not in control here. Oh, I'm not used to leading a class. I'm used to teaching older children, and they all join in beautifully. So that's the first sort of little traveling to London. If you're really up for it, you're going to do that. If you watch that class and you're not ready to run to the door, that's another little hurdle you've just jumped over there. And then, of course, it's, you know, the usual presentation, interview process, all of that, and then business plan and all of that. And, you know, we go from lots of inquiries, and people drop off at certain points in the process. And, you know, there was a time during that where you'd always be like, oh, what have I done wrong? And then you actually go, no, actually it's fine, because they've obviously realised it's not for them. And that is brilliant that they realise that during this process, than a year or two into a franchise, and, you know, potentially could then be unhappy and draining and negative. So yeah, we grew quite quickly, and maintained a really steady growth. And then I'll be completely honest, I feel the past year or so we're at quite a plateau. I think because we had so many in a certain year, that then the renewals come up, and renewals have sometimes been transfers to teachers, brilliant. Sometimes there's been resales, and, you know, it's been a bit like that. But it is all organic. I don't feel that after that first year I carried on running before I could walk. I made sure all the processes were in place, and I made sure that financially I was okay to do it as well. I'm very fortunate that 100% ownership. I haven't had to take investment to do all that, because I didn't have that rush to grow. But I do appreciate that back in 2006 was a very different picture, especially in the children's activities market, to what it is nowadays. And I understand the pace is very different for somebody wanting to start up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so can you talk us through then the time where you got to the point where you'd obviously taken on some pilot franchisees that had gone well, taken on, you know, you doubled your growth, and then were you just solely running the franchise, like doing the franchise recruitment, and then trying to run the actual core business of diddidance, look after teachers and stuff? Or how did you sort of grow the head office of diddidance effectively?
So the lady that I worked with, she stayed with me quite a few years, actually. So she sort of dealt with the recruitment side of it. She was very open and honest, but quite salesy as well. So it you know, for me, it worked great there. And then I would stick to what I knew. I would do all the training, all the creative work. I was still developing more lesson plans. We were still getting music written. So I was still teaching, and there was still a lot of that as well. And then I can't think what year it was, she went back into sales somewhere else. And I had a teacher at the time, the lovely Rebecca, who lots of us all knew. And she had been doing some marketing work for a local Pilates company, I think, and was leaving there. And had said to me, oh, do you have any extra work going, I'd said, as it goes, you know diddidance inside out, and I can train you up on the franchise offering and recruitment side of it. And so I took her on. So for many years, it was just myself and Rebecca. I worked on the practical side. She worked on the, well, at the time, to be fair, it was why she won an EWiF Employee of the Year award a few years ago, because she just had this amazing initiative. And she not only ran the franchise recruitment, she was looking at, we'd just sort of gone on social media and marketing, and she was like my right arm. We was a very close partnership. Mm-hmm. So then a couple of years ago, when she decided to leave, and you know, she was one of those employees who was, you know, I take back what I said then, she was as passionate about that brand as a franchisee was. She really was. She was amazing, and she complimented me really well. You know, sometimes I'd be a bit, you know, okay, yeah, that's great. She'd be like, oh no, you ain't doing that. She was just brilliant. And so when she left for an amazing opportunity at Run Bear Dance Company, it was then that I decided, right, I think we're at a good enough level for me to bring in more individuals now. So we'd already got another lady who had done some business coaching qualifications and dealt with sort of the business manager side of it. She would do the one-to-one calls and help the franchisees with their business plans, checking in on them, doing all of that. And the franchisees really enjoy and still enjoy dealing with her on a one-to-one basis, because, you know, they can be very honest and go, do you know what, I just not feeling that like warm-up exercise we're doing. Because to me, I'd be like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So she's great for that. So she was already with us, and then I decided to take on 2 extra people when Rebecca left, and but all the people at head office are also flexible workers, so they all work from home, and you know, I like that they have that opportunity to be able to work flexibly around their families as well. So there's sort of 4 core of us, and then we've got some extra freelance ladies that dip in with some extra financial knowledge and extra design work and extra PR work. So yeah, it's quite a nice flexible offering as well. But it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I felt I was ready to take that next leap and grow even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So they say that strength of any franchise is obviously in its network of franchisees, and so you know, it's always on a franchisor's mind, I'm sure, to make sure you're keeping your franchisees as happy as possible. So what is it that you guys do? What does your you know, your office helpers do to help keep the franchisees engaged with you, and also support each other? You know, again, the strength of a franchise is the peer support from franchisee to franchisee, as well as getting, you know, the information from the franchisor. So how do you encourage that? Do you encourage sort of like peer-to-peer stuff? Do you have a mentorship team, that kind of stuff?
Well, I think, you know, that's the main point to say about franchising. It is about building a supportive network, because no one's treading on anybody's toes. You know, if you've, for me, like in the dance industry or fitness industry, if you've gone and done your qualification in a certain style and you do it one night and then somebody's down the road doing it the other night, but you're both under the same brand, it gets very competitive. So I do love franchising for that, of being your exclusive territory and you're all complementing each other. So we always, I think it's about the language we use on our recruitment process, and about how that support and that openness is there from day one. So straight away, they know that's the ethos that we run by. And we've got various forms of communication and lives, and we've always done webinars and live group chats. We've been doing that for years and years and years. And then we just try and listen to the franchisees, one after every training week. They fill in a little feedback so we know how we can tweak that, and we do the work buzz anonymous survey every year, which I think is essential because it's anonymous and they can really say what they think. It's not a nice read sometimes, but it's about saying, yes, thank you, I take that on board, I will work on that, I will try and make that better. And we try and encourage them to have local forums as well, away from the main forum, which none of us from head office are on. Human nature, they all need to be able to let loose. I have no idea how much they use, and I try and have someone in each area who would come to me if there was any major issues and feedback. And I try to encourage that when we could, face to face. In fact, it was only, I think, towards the end of last year where I'd started saying, you know, if you need room hire or you want a small budget for a few drinks or whatever, to try and encourage them to get together locally, really face to face and do that. Regular webinars, the forum is essential. They go on there and talk about everything. They're all, it's just something I think that I don't even know if I've consciously grown it or whether it's just naturally, organically grown, but anybody that sort of comes into the network feels it straight away. During training week, I always go on the forum, introduce them and say, look, what feedback have you got for them? They've got the validation class coming up, or they've got this. And straight away, the support comes in. And so I think it just sets it off straight away from day one. And, you know, I can't speak highly enough of them all right now during this situation. The way they have come together and not only supported each other, but, you know, at really hard times supported me.
Yeah.
That it's just, I'm so proud of them all.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, well, that's a great segue into then talking about what has gone on in the last few months, and obviously with you guys being dance classes, very much in person, lots of kids. So, you know, I mean, what was your first thought when obviously all this started, and did you go into a slight panic? And then you know, what did you do to sort of?
I think like most people, I drank heavily and cried a lot, and and I think it was, I suppose it's like even that, you know, as we're coming out of it now, that not knowing, it was when it all started coming out, we were mid-term, and it was, can we carry on using props? Can't we? How much do they have to wash their hands? Do we have to wipe everything down? What do we? And well, what symptoms should we be looking out for? Should we be reporting it? Should they be reporting it to 111? And then how do we track everybody? What list should we? Oh, it was that confusion and that panic that made me spike again. That's where I felt very out of control again. I didn't have all the answers. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an insurance specialist. I wasn't tech IT geek. I didn't have all the answers. But what I did know is, well, guys, I've done a few, you know, things online. I've been on Instagram. I've done live chats, and I think the way we deliver our classes could actually work online. I said, guys, let's have a think about this. Effectively, we lead our classes anyway, because we work with an age group who, as I said earlier, they've got their own agenda. They'll join in when they want to. And it's part of our ethos as well. You know, we let the children join in at their own pace. They're not expected to sit and wait and do this and all of that, which they just don't want to do at this age. So I said, look, we lead classes anyway. Why can't we lead them online? They're effectively following us. Yes, there's certain things where, you know, there's circle dancers and interacting together, but that doesn't stop them from doing it. You know, we get all the grown-ups involved in classes anyway. Let's see if we can keep them active at home. I'm sure parents are going to appreciate it. I'm sure they're going to want to be using screens in a positive way to keep the kids active. Let's adapt a few things. Let's tweak a few things. I've got a few extra exercises I've been working on anyway. We could add that in because that's a solo thing. Or we could make it so that they could make their own props at home. Great. Arts and craft activity, tick. And so we really worked together on saying, right, what could we do if they haven't got a hoop at home? What could they do if they haven't got this? What can they make here? And a lot of those creative ideas came from the franchisees. Oh, I've seen this. You can make castanets out of cardboard and bottle tops, and the brilliant things. And so it was then just getting everybody to do it. So it was, right, okay, I think the simplest thing, the less barriers for our parents to join us, because we ended up going online, I think 2 weeks before the end of term. So like any business, we wanted to try and avoid, you know, lots of refunds and all of that. We wanted people to give online a chance so that they could at least, just for the last 2 weeks, still get the Diddy dance way. And so we did, and rightly so, some franchisees were like, oh, on screen, no one in front of me, not sure I can do that. And I was like, no worries. Right now, in this time, you do what is right for you. You do what is right for your home life, for your homeschooling, and for your mental health. You do what is right for you. And if you can't deliver those classes, then that is fine. But I think you can. I think you could do a few and just give it a try. And bless them, they all did it. And then it was the whole free content, paid content, figuring all of that out. But I feel like once we'd figured out the platform we were using, how the lessons would run, and the structure roughly of how, you know, and customer mindsets keep changing the longer we're in this, how we book, how we do this, I wanted to keep them with a business. I did as much as I could from a management service fee point of view, and said, right, go on as much as you can, keep charging what you feel comfortable at charging, and, you know, figure out the blocks, and we can see what we're doing here. And we ended up creating these groups that have got such great content in that customers can watch 24/7, but, you know, extra things that they wouldn't get for one class price a week. Usually they've now got 24/7 access to all of our content that gives a great value that I felt helped the franchisees, and then me as the franchisor went out and did as much free content as I could to help the brand. I've done sessions on every parenting platform, go in and pimped myself out there. TikTok. So, yes. TikTok. I'm 2 days old on TikTok. Follow me, original Diddy dancer. Oh, I love it. I love it. Thanks, Sean. But it is, I just think we've been fortunate that we had a model that could work online, so it wasn't too much of a hard task to get online. I know some businesses and some activities haven't had that luxury, and so they've been in a lot harder slog than I have.
Oh no, it's really good to hear. And I think, yeah, I mean, obviously it has been a really challenging time for many businesses, but I think there are, just like yours, there are some positive stories and positive outcomes, and I genuinely think it's changing the face of franchising 100%. So it's definitely been interesting times, and
the positive is we'll keep this going.
Yeah,
we'll keep an online for now. Something that we thought about years ago as a subscription channel, and this has forced us to do it. So we franchisee now almost has their we do our classes, parties, early years sessions, merchandise, send sessions, and now we've got online as well. I feel like it's another arm that they can embrace and move forward. And when you say about it's changing the face of franchising, I think even just obviously in the kids activities industry, it's that's one thing about how we're all collaborating. But what I love about the various groups and all of this is how franchisors are really all coming together now, and we're all sharing policies and procedures and ideas and this and that, and franchising, it's great if you're thinking of buying a business or going into a franchise network, because as a franchisee you've got that support. But for me as a franchisor, I've never felt more supported ever than I do right now, and that's definitely another positive.
I think that's a really good point. I think obviously just normal business owners can often network with other business owners and share tips and ideas, but sometimes as a franchisor it can actually be quite lonely, because without really getting involved more in the industry, you feel like you are just alone, because you've got to run your own business, but you also have the franchise to run. So I think before people get more involved and understand that they can get more involved in the franchise industry, then they meet another franchisor and they're just like, oh my god, like you have the same problems and issues that I do, and you can share knowledge, and it's such a good support system. That's why I love franchising. So and not only for franchisees but franchisors.
So much more, so much more heightened now. And I think because I've been going so long, there would be certain things where, you know, just in a general networking sense, or at an EWiF meeting or an EWiF awards or whatever it was, I would just be like, oh, I've probably been going too long to ask that question. I feel a bit stupid now. I don't want to lose face, you know, all this. Whereas now, you're just like, do you know what, guys? I just don't know. And so, you know, I feel it's even more supportive right now. Actually don't know what I'm doing, still winging it.
Oh, good. Right, well, I think we're almost coming to the end of a session. I'm just going to have a quick look to see if we've got any questions for you, Anne-Marie. So, okay, we've got a few. So one is from Caroline, and she said, interesting discussion, thanks guys. She said, I'd be keen to know what Anne-Marie's toughest moment or challenge has been and how she overcame it.
Caroline, how long have we got? No.
Got 2 minutes.
I do honestly think starting it off was the hardest thing, because I was juggling being a new mum and figuring out the ways of franchising and how I do it and how I can be supportive. I think that was definitely the hardest moment, and then I overcame that. And then I think probably there's moments where, you know, the first franchisee doesn't want to renew and you're like, oh, or yeah, do you know what, I think I'm going to sell on now. When you go through those, I still feel it now. I think all of those moments, and you always have ups and downs. That's the life of any business owner. But as a franchisor feeling responsible for a network, they're a little bit heightened sometimes. But I think, like anything, you have your peaks and troughs, and you just need to find your coping mechanisms to get you through that and realise tomorrow's another day. I can deal with this.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way, a good outlook, I think, on life and everything. Okay, so I just want to ask one last question, and I'm going to ask every franchisor that I interview this. In quite a succinct way, what would you say to any woman who is actually thinking about franchising her business?
Find a professional who can really guide you correctly. Make sure they don't just want to make money, that they will be honest with you and transparent, and really analyze and make sure it's feasible that your business can be franchised. You have to think of that franchisee at the end of the day. Can they pay you your royalties and still make profit? Make sure somebody checks that your business is feasible for that. And if it is, do it.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. I think a great place to start, obviously, EWiF website. We've got our ambassadors on there, some of whom are franchise consultants that can help you do that, or also there is the British Franchise Association's website as well, and they've got many other ethical consultants there as well. So that would always be a great place to start if you are thinking about franchising your business and you want to take the first step. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Anne-Marie, for joining us, sharing your time and everything that you do for EWiF and our community. I just think you're fabulous. So before we leave, quickly, I just want to say this video will be available, should be available on our Facebook page after we've come off. So I just want to urge, if any of our ambassadors are watching, please, please, please share this video with as many people as possible. We really want to spread the word about franchising franchising and how much impact it can have on people's lives. I think, as me and Anne-Marie have touched upon, we all need a little bit of positive news, I think, at the minute, and franchising can be such a great answer for women looking for something, you know, what they want to do next. So please share this video and let's all help encourage more women into franchising. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening, and
thank you.
See you later. Bye, Anne-Marie.
Bye.